Okay, so get this. The exact same physical response that triggers a full-blown panic attack is literally the exact same one that gives elite athletes their competitive edge. Wild, right? Welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're going to completely shift how we view the foundation of student learning. For the longest time, we've treated academic performance and a student's mental well-being as, well, two completely separate tracks. But what if they're actually the exact same system? Today, we are unpacking a really groundbreaking 2026 paper by researchers Meg Koppel and Allison Hadwin that proves you simply cannot separate how a student feels from how a student learns.
To really wrap our heads around the high stakes of this research, I want you to meet Sam. Now, Sam's a fictional high school student, but their experience is entirely drawn from real-world data. Just listen to what Sam is dealing with. They notice their heart pounding and their breathing getting rapid just thinking about assignments. They're starting to believe that dealing with these new academic demands is simply too much. And because of this overwhelming physical panic, Sam has stopped studying, they're avoiding classes, and they've completely stopped asking teachers for help. Sam's story instantly humanizes the reality of academic stress. I mean, this isn't just about feeling a little nervous. This is a physiological response that is actively shutting down the ability to learn.
So let's dive right into the science that can actually solve Sam's problem. Here's our game plan. First, we'll hit the student success dilemma. Second, rethinking stress and coping. Third, the two sides of mental health. Fourth, self-regulated learning. And finally, the integrated framework. Let's do this.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the student success dilemma. We're moving beyond just grades and attrition.
Historically, schools have defined student success by looking at the numbers, dropout rates, graduation rates, GPAs. But true student success has to be a balance of two things: feeling well, which covers mental health and stress regulation, and functioning well, which is the actual academic engagement. You literally can't have one without the other. Think of it like a giant stage. Stress and mental health are not just passive background variables or things that just happen to exist outside the classroom. They are dynamic, active conditions that physically build the stage where learning takes place. If a student's stage is broken, just crumbling under the weight of overwhelming stress or languishing mental health, the actual performance of learning simply cannot happen.
Moving right along to Section 2, rethinking stress and coping. Is stress actually the enemy?
We hear this all the time, right? We need to eliminate stress for our students. But the research shows that completely eliminating stress is not only impossible, it's actually super counterproductive. In a goal-oriented academic environment, stress is just inevitable. When it's managed effectively, stress is the very fuel that motivates students to achieve and grow. It all comes down to the type of response a student has. In a threat response, a student feels like the demands of a task completely exceed their available resources, which leads them to avoid it. That is exactly where our student Sam is trapped right now. Conversely, a challenge response happens when a student feels their resources actually exceed the demands, leading to approach motivation and growth. So, our goal isn't to remove Sam's academic demands, but to guide them toward a challenge response by building up their academic and emotional resources.
Which brings us to a really absolutely crucial term: stress mindset. This is basically a mental shortcut a student takes to decide whether stress is good or bad for them. Sam currently holds a stress is debilitating mindset. They feel their pounding heart and instantly think, I'm failing. That negative spin actually depletes their cognitive resources, kills their motivation, and forces the brain into rigid, surface-level thinking. But, and this is a real game changer, teaching students a stress is enhancing mindset actually improves cognitive flexibility and performance.
And right alongside mindset is coping self-efficacy. Think of this as a student's internal belief in their own ability to handle stress through problem solving, getting support, and regulating their own emotions. Sam is displaying incredibly low coping self-efficacy right now. They don't believe they can fix the problem, they don't believe they can calm their own panic, and they don't believe they can ask for help. That lack of belief is exactly why they're skipping class and hiding from their teachers. Makes sense, right?
Okay, Section 3, two sides of mental health, feeling well versus doing well.
Using what researchers call the dual continua model, we see that flourishing mental health is so much more than just the absence of an illness. It's about actively feeling well and doing well. And mental health is really broken down into hedonic and eudaimonic well-being. Hedonic well-being is all about that short-term pleasure, feeling happy, interested, or satisfied right in the moment. Eudaimonic well-being, though, is about long-term purpose. It's living in alignment with your true self, pursuing personal growth, and building deep social connections. Now, hedonic boosts are great for short-term engagement for sure, but it's that enduring, value-driven power of eudaimonic health that actually sustains a student through tough academic challenges over the long haul.
Notice how these dimensions all overlap to create true flourishing. You've got that emotional, hedonic well-being, high positive emotion, and life satisfaction. But look at how it intersects with the psychological and social well-being. Those are the eudaimonic components. Things like self-acceptance, environmental mastery, and social integration. To really succeed, a student needs an environment that fosters all of these overlapping areas.
All right, Section 4, Self-Regulated Learning, or SRL. This is the engine of academic success.
If stress and mental health are the stage, self-regulated learning, SRL, is the engine that actually drives academic performance. It is the comprehensive framework that connects a student's inner emotional world directly to their outer academic performance. And it happens in 4 recursive phases. First, task understanding. Second, goal setting and planning. Third, task enactment. And fourth, adaptation based on feedback. Let's look back at Sam for a second. Sam's initial failure happened right out of the gate at step 1. They didn't understand the new, unfamiliar assignments. That lack of understanding spawned immense uncertainty and threat stress, which entirely derailed their ability to set goals, plan, or, do any actual studying.
Baked into this theory is the COPES framework: conditions, operations, products, evaluations, and standards. The researchers point out something absolutely critical here. Stress and mental health are the foundational conditions. They aren't just external factors floating around, they are internal realities that continuously interact with and shape a learner's cognitive operations. If the condition is overwhelming panic, the operations, like studying or taking a test, are going to fail, resulting in poor academic products.
Which brings us to Section 5, the Integrated Framework. This is our map for Sam's success.
Now, what's really brilliant about this integrated framework is how it pulls everything together into one unified approach. You can see how stress and mental health feed directly into that central hub of self-regulated learning. Stress triggers the appraisal and coping processes, while mental health supplies the motivation and persistence. By effectively regulating their learning, students enhance their resources and reduce those perceived demands. And then, this central engine pumps out 2 incredible outcomes: feeling well and functioning well. Combine those, and you've got ultimate student success.
So how do we actually translate this dense theory into real-world application? Well, we can intervene across 3 distinct levels: universal course practices for everyone, targeted supports for struggling students, and big-picture institutional policies. For example, during that task understanding phase we talked about, a super easy universal practice is just to normalize discussions of stress right when framing an assignment. Boom, you've instantly helped shift students toward a challenge mindset.
Let's bring this all the way back to Sam. How do we actually get them to thrive using this framework? First, we normalize the stress discussion so Sam knows their pounding heart isn't a sign of failure. It's a sign their body is literally preparing for a challenge. Next, we teach them problem-focused coping so they can break down those unfamiliar assignments. We weave in specific SRL practices to build their academic toolkit, and we foster social connections so they actually feel safe asking their teachers for help. By doing all this, we transform their debilitating panic into an approach-oriented, manageable challenge.
By bringing stress optimization, mental health, and self-regulated learning together under one roof, we finally stop treating the symptoms and start reinforcing the actual foundation. So I want to leave you with a final vital question based on today's explainer. Knowing what we know now, that stress and mental health are not just background noise, but the very foundation of learning, how will you set the stage for your students' success? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating framework with me today. Keep learning and keep setting the stage for success.